Alright, hey guys, it's good to be back making videos. No long explanations, I've just been pretty busy. And I do want to invite all of you to head on over to my Twitch channel. I'll have a link right down below in the description, where you can come and hang out and watch me play some games, because due to the schedule I have right now, it's a lot easier for me to just sit down and play some games on Twitch than to come on and make a whole entire video and edit it together. But I am back making videos, I'm doing a lot of Twitch, but what do you say we get on to the topic of this video? And that's things I hate most about RPGs. Now you guys know that I love my RPGs. I own a lot of RPGs, I play a lot of RPGs, I love a lot of different RPGs. And when I say RPG, I mean turn-based, like Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy IV, turn-based RPGs, I mean action RPGs, all different kind of RPGs. I've made a list that was too big to remember off the top of my head, so I had to make a list of things that are like nitpicks, things I just dislike about the RPG genre. So hopefully you guys have fun, maybe you can relate to some of these. But what do you say we start with the first one on my list, and that's changeable difficulty. And what I mean by this is, what made me really originally hate this was Skyrim. I'm kind of weak. Some of you might think this is just like I'm being ridiculous, but I do not like RPGs that let you change the difficulty on the fly. I'm okay with a game that says, okay, you're about to start a new game file, choose easy, medium, difficult, or hard, or very hard, and then you're stuck with that difficulty for the whole game. But the second that you give me the option to change that difficulty when I'm stuck on a hard boss fight or a hard part in the game, I'm weak. I am so tempted to just, for that one boss, just go in there and turn down that difficulty and just kill him in one hit and move on. And then, tell myself that I'll never do that again, but then it happens again later in the game when I get stuck. That happened to me in Skyrim. And I was not the biggest fan of it, because I fell victim to that in one dungeon where I was just struggling, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to crank this difficulty down to like minimum. Kill everything in one hit, be done with this dungeon, and just move on. Another game that did that is Bravely Default. I don't like being able to adjust the difficulty of RPGs on the fly, especially turn-based RPGs. That's just a nitpick of mine. And let me know in the comments below if any of you identify with any of these things that I'm complaining about. The next one, and this is a big one. One thing I don't like about RPGs is when you're only given like 1 or 2, and in some cases only 3 party members on your team. So a case of this would be in Final Fantasy XII, for instance. You get 3 party members to bring with you. But I felt it was very limited where, you have to have the role of a tank. You have to have the role of some sort of healer. And then the third role is always kind of left up to like a damage dealer. If I had just had one more party member, it would open up a whole new world of different party combinations. Like say I want 2 tanks and a healer and a damage dealer, or, 3 mages and a tank. Like having 3 kind of limits the amount of customization in the party, and my same complaint goes for Xenoblade on the Wii. I just felt like, as good as that game was, it would have benefited so much more from just having one more party member on the team. Things might get a little too hectic, but I don't know. Some games, not all, like for instance Time and Eternity on the PS3, I think works great as sort of a 1/2 party member team. It's not always the case though. Next is too many choices for characters. So what I mean by that is a game like Chrono Cross, where you're given like 50 different characters to choose from, and it gets kind of overwhelming, and I don't know who to stick in my party of 3 because there's such a wide selection, and I could never get attached to any of them story-wise or character development-wise because, well, there's just too many to choose from. It's as simple as that. And the same thing kind of happens to me in like Pokemon or Shin Megami Tensei games, where there's just so many different monsters to choose for your team, it can get a bit overwhelming sometimes. Hard to pick and choose. Okay, this next one, bad battle music. Okay? This actually kind of killed my enjoyment of Persona 3, actually. Persona 3 was a great game, but I despised the normal battle music in Persona 3. I just didn't feel like it fit that game at all. Well, I guess it kind of fit, but it just wasn't my kind of battle theme. My kind of battle themes in an RPG are like high pumping, like techno, like really over the top. And when you give me sort of like a jazz slash almost rap battle theme, some people love it, I hated it, but RPGs for me, if I'm going to be listening to that same battle theme over and over and over for dozens of hours, it better be darn good. Alright, overly complex crafting and battle systems. So what I mean by this are games like Disgaea, where, that's a really complex RPG, strategy RPG, where there's just so many different mechanics to it. Or Mugen Souls on the PS3. I mean, I was 10 hours into that game, and it was still introducing tutorial after tutorial after tutorial. I mean, it was just getting ridiculous. And not like so on the complex side, but an example is Final Fantasy VIII with the Guardian system, the GF system, where, you can't just it's not enough to just summon these things into battle and have them do an attack for you. You got to raise these things outside of battle. They got their own separate level up system and equipment system. I mean, it was a little overly complex for me. This one is not as bad as some of the other ones, but it kind of annoys me. Long, drawn-out cutscenes. Okay, I'm okay with a game like Xenosaga that has really long cutscenes and it's kind of known for that, right? Or Final Fantasy 13, but they're actually good cutscenes. But when you give me a game that has long cutscenes that are kind of unskippable and they're boring and the story's terrible, the characters are uninteresting, then I start to have a problem with long, drawn-out cutscenes and talking between characters. Extra recruitable throwaway characters. So what I mean by this is, think of a game like Valkyrie Profile, which does it actually really well, where you have these no-name characters in most cases that join your team, you level them up, you spend a lot of time with them, but they don't really have a unique identity. You're kind of just leveling them up for the hell of it. But at least Valkyrie Profile gives you a good incentive because you use them for the greater purpose of the game. You send them off to whatever Valhalla or whatever it was, or to sort of progress the game. But when you give me a game like, say, one of the reasons why I never want to play Dragon's Dogma is because most of the characters you get in that game are just like no-name characters that you just create and they don't really have a backstory at all. And there's a lot of other RPGs that are sort of along that same vein where the characters I want on my team, I want to identify with them. I want them to have a backstory. I don't want them to just be some nameless peon that you just recruit for the heck of it. Some NPCs that give different dialogue and others not. So this one, I'm sure you guys can relate to this. You're playing an RPG. You talk to an NPC, it gives you a couple of lines of dialogue, you stop talking, you initiate a conversation again, and he gives you different dialogue. That's great, Hey, if you want to talk to this NPC more and get different story from him, that's great. But RPGs that make you talk to different NPCs like that, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere they give you an NPC that only gives you one line of dialogue, and then you talk to him a second time expecting new dialogue, but you get the same line of dialogue, really annoys me. Especially when the talking to them is kind of long and drawn out and you can't automatically skip it. Just a little nitpick there. Too many puzzles. So what I mean by this is, I like my RPGs to be story-driven, to be adventure-driven, exploring towns, finding little hidden items here and there. I don't like them to be overly complex with puzzles. So Golden Sun was kind of a culprit for me. I love the Golden Sun games. Especially the first one on Game Boy Advance. But when it gets to the point where most of that game is nothing but puzzles towards the end of the game, like really complex puzzles in the dungeons, it really started to get on my nerves. I don't like puzzles to get in my way. I kind of like to progress through my RPGs at a nice, slow, steady pace. They're long enough, and the last thing I want is a puzzle that's holding me up for hours and hours on end. No hours counted. So, to me, playing an RPG or any game in general, but especially an RPG, is like reading a book. I'm the kind of person, when I read a book, I like to crack a physical book open, I like to see the creases in that spine, I like to see my progress through this book. In an RPG, I also like to see my progress. I like to see exactly how many hours I've played this game. As weird as it sounds, that's kind of essential. I love that in an RPG. I love to say, man, I'm 30 hours into this game. I've got, a lot of time invested. I'm 60 hours into this RPG. Man, I really invested a lot of time in this game. But when I'm playing a long RPG that doesn't tell me how many hours I've played, that kind of annoys me. That was one of the biggest complaints I had with the Etrian Odyssey games on the DS. Before, you were able to start tracking the amount of time that you played on the 3DS. That just always annoyed me because I loved playing those games for long stretches of time, but not knowing exactly how much I played them, so I can say, man, I played 50 hours of Etrian Odyssey 2. Kind of annoyed me. Can't see stat changes on new equipment. So you go to a shop, you're going to equip your team, you're going to get them a whole new bunch of armor and weapons and whatnot, and then you go to buy it, but it doesn't tell you the stat, like, do your stats go up, do your stats go down? It kind of just has the price there, and you kind of just assume that it's going to be better. And you're not able to see until you actually buy it and then equip it on your character. Luckily, not many RPGs do this anymore, but that is one that just definitely really, really annoyed me. Or RPGs that show you the stat change, but they don't show you like a color, like a blue to say, okay, this is going down, or red is going up, or whichever, Just make it easy. Make it easy for me to tell when that piece of equipment I'm buying, what the good things about it are and what the bad things about it are. Switchable characters on the fly. So one thing I really don't like about action RPGs in particular is being given control of one character and then being able to switch between 3 different characters on the fly. So in other words, Ys 7 is a big culprit of this. I do not like games that... I know this is a real nitpick because most people will be like, what are you, crazy? I think that's a great thing. It's, diverse. You got different characters to choose. I'd rather have them play more of like a support role and not just kind of follow me around. Even though they do that in E7, you're still really only getting the real benefit when you switch between the 3 different characters on the fly. You know, you switch and then you gain control of the one character, and the others kind of just do their thing, but they don't really do much. Anyway, switchable characters, not my thing. And lastly is repetitive side quests. So games like Ni no Kuni, where I was doing like an 100% run of that game, trying to do everything you could. And then when you get to like the 20-30 hour mark and you realize that every single side quest that you're doing is essentially the same exact thing, it gets to be kind of annoying and repetitive, and that's kind of killed Ni no Kuni for me towards the end of that game. It just got so repetitive. Well, anyway, guys, that is my list in no particular order of things that are nitpicks, things I dislike or hate about RPGs. Let me know what your dislikes and hates are about the genre. Leave a comment down below, and good to be back. See you over on my Twitch channel, and thanks for watching.